Alright, today I wanted to show off a couple of the new golden gift box items. I picked up the bow and the guest summons, how you can use them, kind of the value of them. I like the guest summons because I think Elevon's one of the most powerful effects in the game, even though it's not entirely useful against like boss monsters and stuff. There are some aspects to it that can work versus boss monsters pretty well, and I'll kind of showcase that. And then I picked up the bow. I'm not a ranger. I don't train dexterity, but I'll toggle over on quad force, kind of show it off. I do item hoard a little bit. I just want to be able to switch builds based on, maybe things come out. Maybe builds get perks as the game evolves. I want to be able to switch, and sometimes I just switch just to change things up out of boredom. And then at the end, I kind of want to show off using the Elevon part of the guest and maybe show off a couple of older items along with it that could work. Maybe it can work for some bossing. We'll see. But first thing I'll do is I'll show off the bow. Basically, the bow has two modes. And what I'll do is I'll start off here. So the bow is actually Orpheum bow. So we've got two modes here. We've got standard arrows, and we've got an effect which hasn't been used too much. It's been used in the Kruger claw items, but it's basically like panic, and that it automatically inflicts. There's no save on the inflict. There's always a save during the monster's turn later. Most of those effects are not as good as effects that there's an actual roll on the infliction side, in my opinion. The only reason panic has become really prevalent is due to the panic eat statuses, and then as everyone has started to figure out Creature 72 here, it always inflicts panic and then phase, which eats panic before the monster can ever make a save. It's probably an overpowered mechanic. I don't know if they'll ever fix it, but maybe it's cheesy, but I'll probably always use it. Alright, so let's get myself some SP here just to kind of show the bow off. And like I said, I've always been picking a few bows up. I'm thinking about picking that Super Soaker up at some point, even though it's an ultra rare. I don't know about buying an ultra rare for something that I may never use, but anyway. Alright, so this is damage mode. 437, 394. That's pretty good. It should work with the Fortune Thief. I bypassed the plus 100, so that was verified. You get the initiative plus 50, and then if your luck is equal to or greater than the monster's luck, then you also get another plus 50 on the first turn. So that's pretty significant there. Pretty standard bow action. Significant of this setup is obviously the SP heal, so it keeps my quad force heal in check. So now we're going to go with the sleep version of it. You're going to have different animation. Still does pretty good damage. Automatically inflicts, and then you'll have your dex save, which it already removed itself. I think it's versus endurance. Dex versus endurance. It's probably worth keeping on sleep mode, to be honest with you. And then as you can see, lost a turn. It's basically paralyzed, but the save is each turn by the monster. Alright, so that's the bow. So now I wanted to pivot to the guest. Now the problem with not going to the practice trainer, okay, so I got lucky here. So this is actually going to be the most optimal scenario. One of the things that I wanted to make sure that I talk about is when I play the AQ, I'm all about stacking effects. A lot of people talk about stacking damage to try to get to the damage cap or get as much damage as possible. The same, the more damage increasing features that you implement, the more damage you do. Well, the same concept is there with every status in the game. If you had a fear inflict armor with the fear inflict guest, with the fear inflict pet, maybe you had a fear inflict misc, and then you cast a fear inflict spell, that's going to add up, and that's going to be a powerful effect. So I do the same things with Elevulns. I'll buy Elevuln items, but I usually won't use them until I can stack. So in this case, I'm going to stack the pet with the guest. Alright, so what I'm going to do here, also speaking of stacking, what I tend to do when I'm Elevuln stacking as a beast build, as I'll spam click Clever Disguise, the guest will do 155%, up to 155% Elevuln, and then I'm doing 2 turns each here, so that'll be 210 max. We'll see what happens here. 155, 210, 247, 284. So you get, in this case, you get up to 284. Did you notice it just did 752 burn? So the Elevulns affect the element-based DOTs, poisons, and burns that happen to be of the same element. And there's your value of Elevulns for bossing, because it's going to enhance and make sure you're hitting the damage cap also for your burn. So you're not only increasing, the Elevuln is making sure you're hitting the cap for bossing for your guest attacks, your pet attacks, your attacks, also the burns. So there's the value of elemental vulnerability, especially over empowerment. And you're going to notice the damage is just going to melt off the second time because there's now 2 rows of elemental vulnerability, and if you notice, it just killed him. So whenever you see 0 turns of whatever, keep in mind, as long as it's listed, the effect is still there, and that's how it works. A lot of people don't understand that. Alright, so I'm going to pivot now. I'm going to change the guest up to the barrier mode. So they've been doing this. They added the shield recently. Necromancer's a recent-ish armor with a barrier. The shield gives a barrier, and now the guest is going to give a barrier. So again, I'm demonstrating stacking. The barrier effect is one of my favorite effects, actually, along with the Elevon, so that's why I picked up the guest. I'm going to go ahead and probably, let's see here. So the Necromancer, so what I'll do here real quick is I'll just show off the guest's barrier. So I already had 600, so I think it's like maybe 150 to 200 per turn. And as you're noticing, 0 damage. The shield and the Necromancer's barrier will get lucky strikes, and it will go up slightly with the Frostwell Crown. So if I'm going to cast a spell, I'll get a little bit better barrier. Eventually they'll get through it. So we're getting a barrier from casting spells. Increased barrier there. So I'm just doing my SP regen through Ghost Town there. Alright, so that is the barrier form of the guest. And then I want to pivot a little bit. Let's go here. So I'm going to change and go back to the Elevon. I wanted to show off something. Alright, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try to build an Elevon. So we've got 284. I could, if I wanted to, I could switch to Booster, Pet, and Guest. But I'm going to come here to Toronto Rex Rider. Alright, Shadow Feeder. I could do this guy if I wanted to also. Damage. And then everyone knows about Alchemical Unity. It inflicts blind based on damage. But what is one of the features about this armor here? This guy here. What is the one thing that stands out about that skill? It's the number of hits. A lot of people say Alchemical Unity is not worth having and using because of boss damage caps, which would then restrict blind. But what if you could hit 8 times at the damage cap? What if you could inflict Elevons to ensure that? There are some fire Elevons. The Silas Pet that does the fire and darkness Elevon now. And then there is the Grakma guest from the Grakma Misk. But since this is locked to fire, it is a weapon-based skill. So you can just get your shield cake and imbue. change the element over to, and then I didn't catch the blind, but I thought I saw 130. You'd probably get maybe like a 60 blind. So that's one way you can use weapon-based skills with imbues, and then you can use that specific skill as it's 8 hits, and then you'll end up with a pretty significant blind. Anyway, that's all I have for today.